The hardest worker in the room is almost never the most powerful person in it. Read that again. The one grinding the longest hours. The one answering every message. The one wearing exhaustion like a badge of honor. It looks admirable. It feels noble. But most of the time that person is reacting, not leading. Moving, but not advancing. Busy, but not effective. Stoicism teaches something uncomfortable. Power begins the moment you stop being controlled by urgency. Most people surrender that sovereignty every day, to notifications, to opinions, to pressure, to the fear of falling behind. The world rewards motion, but the Stoic seeks direction. The world praises noise, but the Stoic sharpens silence. We've been trained to worship effort. From a young age, you're told that more hours mean more value. That exhaustion is proof of commitment, that if you're not overwhelmed, you must not be trying hard enough. You learn to equate being busy with being important. You learn to measure your worth by how much you can carry. But if effort alone created power, wouldn't the busiest people always be in control? Look around carefully. The person running from task to task rarely controls the direction of the room. The one who pauses, listens, and speaks last often does. There is something different about them. They are not frantic. They are not desperate to respond. They are selective. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Notice what he didn't say. He did not promise control over chaos. He did not suggest reacting faster. He pointed inward. Because the moment you stop reacting to everything, you begin to choose what actually deserves your response. That small internal shift changes the entire game. It moves you from motion to intention, from noise to clarity, from exhaustion to quiet authority. Once you understand that power begins inside, you start noticing how much of your day is driven by impulse. A message arrives and you rush to answer. A comment stings and you defend yourself. A new opportunity appears and you grab it before asking whether it fits your direction. Action often feels productive, but sometimes it is just anxiety in disguise. Epictetus warned, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That reaction is where energy is either lost or preserved. When you react to everything, you scatter your strength. When you pause, you gather it. That pause may feel uncomfortable at first. Silence can feel like weakness in a world addicted to speed. Yet that silence is not emptiness. It is evaluation. It is space for thought. It is the difference between being pushed by circumstances and standing firm within them. As this becomes clearer, you begin to see how many battles were never yours to fight. Every argument entered, every minor task accepted, every emotional response given without reflection chips away at your focus. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Most of what drives your constant activity is unconscious fear. Fear of being seen as lazy, fear of missing out, fear of losing relevance. When you bring those fears into awareness, they lose their grip. You realize that many of your actions were not strategic at all. They were reactions meant to soothe insecurity. Awareness creates distance. Distance creates choice. And choice restores control. Control then changes the way you use your time. Instead of filling every hour to feel useful, you begin to protect empty space. That space is not wasted. It is where thought deepens. It is where strategy forms. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Wasted time is not only idleness, it is also misdirected effort. It is saying yes to things that do not matter. It is scattering attention across trivial details while neglecting the one decision that could alter your path. When you cut away what is unnecessary, you do not become lazy. You become precise. Fewer actions, greater impact. Fewer words, stronger meaning. If this perspective resonates with you, if you're learning to move with intention instead of urgency, subscribe. Not to follow a channel, but to strengthen the mindset that values clarity, discipline, and quiet authority. The room may still be loud, but you are no longer pulled by every sound. Precision builds momentum of a different kind. Not frantic momentum, but focused progress. Imagine two people moving forward. One runs in every direction, touching everything, exhausted by nightfall. The other walks slowly but steadily toward a clear target. At the end of the day, who is closer? Aristotle observed, "Quality is not an act, it is a habit." Quality thinking requires restraint. It requires saying no more often than yes. It requires trusting that not every opportunity is meant for you. When you stop trying to prove your worth through constant effort, your work gains weight. Your presence gains gravity. People begin to notice that when you speak, it matters. When you move, it shifts something. Over time, this disciplined restraint transforms your inner state. You feel less rushed, less reactive, more aware of the patterns unfolding around you. The world still moves quickly, but you do not have to match its speed. You can observe, you can calculate, you can wait. That waiting is not passivity. It is preparation. It is stored energy. When the right moment arrives, you act with clarity because you have not wasted yourself on every distraction. This is the art of doing nothing when nothing needs to be done. It is choosing stillness over noise, intention over impulse, depth over display. And in that quiet discipline, you discover something unexpected. The calmest person in the room is often the one shaping its future. Think about how you respond under pressure. An email arrives marked urgent. A message carries a tone that feels disrespectful. A competitor announces something bold. Someone questions you in front of others. Your heart rate rises. Your thoughts speed up. Everything inside you wants to respond now. You want to correct, defend, explain, counter. The urge feels powerful, almost automatic. But pause for a moment and look closely at what is happening. The discomfort you feel is not about the event itself. It is about the story forming in your mind. It is about ego, fear, and the need to restore control. Action becomes the fastest way to soothe that discomfort. Doing something feels like regaining power, even if that action is impulsive and poorly chosen. When tension rises, your instinct is to protect yourself immediately. Yet sometimes the strongest reaction is restraint. Imagine someone criticizes you in a meeting. All eyes turn toward you. You feel heat in your chest. Words rush forward, ready to defend your name. In that moment, you have two options. You can fire back and match the energy in the room, or you can breathe, sit still, and let silence fill the space. That silence feels heavy. It feels like weakness. It feels like surrender. But in reality, it is control. You are not allowing your emotions to dictate your move. You are choosing your move. The discomfort in that pause is the doorway to leverage. Most people cannot tolerate it. They rush to speak because silence exposes their insecurity. When you hold that silence, you shift the balance of power. Others begin to reveal more. They talk longer than they planned. They show their impatience. They expose their motives. You gather information while conserving energy. You are not withdrawing, you are observing. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In moments of pressure, your enemy is often impulsiveness. If someone acts with hostility and you respond with equal hostility, you have mirrored their weakness. If you respond with calm restraint, you separate yourself from their chaos. This discipline is not easy. It requires awareness of your own patterns. Many reactions feel unavoidable because they are rooted in unconscious fears. Fear of being seen as weak, fear of losing status, fear of being misunderstood. When you become aware of these fears, you realize that the pressure is not external, it is internal. The email is just words. The comment is just sound. The competitor's move is just information. The meaning you attach to it creates the urgency. Awareness loosens that attachment. It gives you space between stimulus and response. That space changes everything. In that space, you can ask yourself whether this situation deserves your full energy. Not every challenge is a threat. Not every comment requires correction. Not every opportunity requires immediate action. Under pressure, imagination amplifies the situation. It tells you that if you do not act now, you will lose everything. When you slow down, you see that most pressures fade with time. Some conflicts resolve themselves. Some critics reveal their own weakness. Some competitors overextend because they move too quickly. Your restraint becomes an advantage. Restraint does not mean avoidance. It means timing. There are moments when action is necessary and decisive, but those moments are clearer when your mind is calm. If you react to every spark, you will be exhausted before the real fire appears. Pressure is a test of discipline. It tests whether you are guided by impulse or by principle. Aristotle observed, "Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet." Patience under pressure tastes bitter because it feels unnatural. You want to prove yourself. You want to restore balance instantly. Yet when you wait, when you assess, when you respond instead of react, the outcome often favors you. As this becomes part of your character, people begin to notice something different. You are not easily shaken. You do not rush into arguments. You do not chase every opportunity that flashes before you. You weigh your words. You measure your moves. This does not make you slow. It makes you precise. Under pressure, precision is power. Others may act loudly, but you act deliberately. Over time, this pattern builds quiet authority. You become someone whose responses carry weight because they are rare and considered. Pressure will always exist. Emails will arrive. Comments will sting. Moves will be made. The difference lies in how you meet them. When you understand that action is not the same as control, you begin to choose your responses carefully. That choice is leverage, and leverage wins conflicts long before they escalate. There's a difference between passivity and control, and most people confuse the two. Passivity is giving up. It is drifting. It is allowing life to push you in any direction without resistance. Control, on the other hand, is deliberate. It is choosing when not to move. It is the strength to stay grounded when every voice around you demands action. At first glance, stillness and weakness can look the same. Both appear inactive. But the intention behind them is completely different. One is surrender. The other is strategy. And if you cannot tell them apart, you will either rush into unnecessary battles or withdraw when you should stand firm. Picture a chessboard. The amateur moves quickly. Pieces shift constantly. There is noise, motion, activity. It feels impressive. It feels energetic, but often it is careless. The experienced player sits still, studying the board. Minutes pass. Nothing seems to happen. From the outside it looks like hesitation, yet everything is happening. The experienced player is calculating consequences, tracing patterns, anticipating responses that have not yet occurred. They are conserving energy. They are waiting for clarity. When they finally move, the board changes in a way that cannot be easily reversed. The difference is not intelligence alone. It is discipline. In daily life, the same pattern appears. When markets panic, the crowd sells quickly, driven by fear. It spreads. The crowd adds their voice, eager to be involved. When tension rises in a room, the crowd reacts first and thinks later. It is easier to follow the wave than to resist it. It feels safer to blend into the noise. But the one who remains still gathers information. They observe who is motivated by fear and who is thinking clearly. They notice which arguments are emotional and which are rational. In that quiet observation, power accumulates. It may not be visible at first, but it is real. Seneca once wrote, "He who is brave is free." That bravery is not always dramatic. It does not always look like charging forward. Sometimes bravery is refusing to rush when everyone else is sprinting. It is sitting with uncertainty without trying to silence it through action. It is trusting that clarity will emerge if you give it time. Most people act quickly because they are uncomfortable with not knowing. They mistake speed for strength, yet speed without direction leads to wasted effort. The courage to wait separates those who react from those who lead. The more you practice this form of control, the more you notice how often the world rewards impulsiveness in the short term. Quick reactions can create temporary applause. Fast decisions can create an illusion of leadership, but illusions fade. Over time, the consequences of rushed choices surface. The experienced mind sees beyond the immediate moment. It asks not only what this action will accomplish now, but what chain of events it might trigger later. That broader view requires patience. It requires resisting the pressure to prove yourself through constant movement. This patience is not laziness, it is preparation. When you choose not to engage in every debate, you preserve your energy for the discussions that truly matter. When you do not chase every opportunity, you avoid scattering your focus. When you resist reacting to every criticism, you protect your peace. Each act of restraint strengthens your position. It creates a reputation of steadiness. People begin to see you as someone who does not panic, someone who does not bend under pressure. That perception itself becomes an advantage. Carl Jung observed, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Accepting yourself includes accepting that you do not need to respond to everything. It includes being comfortable with silence. It includes trusting your judgment enough to wait. Many rush because they seek validation. They want to prove that they are decisive, capable, involved. But true control does not demand constant display. It operates quietly. It allows others to reveal themselves while you remain centered. As this habit deepens, your moves become fewer but more meaningful. When you finally speak, people listen. When you finally act, it carries weight. Because your actions are not diluted by constant reaction, they stand out. You are no longer just another voice in the noise. You are the calm presence in the room. That calm is not accidental. It is built through discipline, through repeated choices, to stay steady when chaos tempts you to move. Over time, you begin to understand that doing nothing at the right moment is not absence. It is influence. It is shaping outcomes without obvious force. By choosing when not to move, you create space for others to overextend. You allow situations to unfold enough to reveal their true nature. And when the right moment arrives, when clarity replaces confusion, your action lands with precision. It matters because it is rare. It matters because it is chosen. In that sense, control is not about dominating every moment. It is about mastering yourself within it. There's something else we rarely talk about, and it quietly shapes everything: decision fatigue. Every small choice drains you a little. What to wear, what to eat, whether to reply now or later, whether to argue or stay silent, whether to explain yourself or let it go. None of these seem heavy on their own. They feel harmless, almost automatic, but together they create a steady leak in your mental energy. By the time something truly important appears, your mind is not sharp. It is tired. And when your mind is tired, you do not choose with precision. You react, you settle, you compromise. You move simply because you no longer have the strength to think clearly. Calm people are not calm by accident. Their steadiness is not a personality trait. It is the result of discipline. They have eliminated trivial decisions. They have removed unnecessary noise. They do not argue about everything. They do not check their phone every few minutes. They do not engage in every discussion that invites them in. They protect their attention like it is something rare and valuable, because it is. You can see it in the way they move through the day. There is space in their schedule. There is space in their thoughts. That space is not emptiness. It is preserved energy. Notice how scattered you feel after a day filled with small, constant choices. It is not always physical exhaustion. It is mental friction. Your thoughts jump from one task to another. You find it harder to focus. Simple decisions feel heavier than they should. That scattered feeling is not weakness. It is the predictable result of overusing your mind on things that never deserved that level of attention. When everything feels urgent, nothing is important. And when nothing is important, your energy spreads thin. Imagine the opposite for a moment. Fewer commitments, fewer emotional reactions, fewer unnecessary conversations. You wake up and already know what matters today. You are not pulled into every debate. You are not constantly checking for updates. You are not explaining yourself to people who are not truly listening. Slowly, the mind clears. You begin to think in full sentences again. You can sit with a problem long enough to see its shape. You can observe without immediately needing to respond. That clarity feels powerful because it is rare. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." The quality of your thoughts depends on how much noise you allow into your mind. If your attention is constantly fragmented, your thinking becomes shallow. You jump from surface to surface without depth. But when you cut away what does not matter, your thinking deepens. You begin to see connections. You notice patterns. You anticipate consequences before they unfold. This is not magic. It is the natural result of protecting your mental resources. Epictetus reminded his students, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That line speaks directly to the fear behind many unnecessary decisions. Often you engage because you are afraid of how silence will look. You respond because you do not want to seem uninformed. You explain because you fear being misunderstood. When you let go of the need to appear constantly active, you remove a huge portion of wasted effort. You begin to accept that not every moment requires your input. That acceptance frees up space for what truly matters. Carl Jung once said, "Where your fear is, there your task is." The fear of missing out, the fear of being left behind, the fear of not doing enough often drives decision fatigue. You say yes because you are afraid to lose opportunity. You argue because you are afraid to lose status. You overwork because you are afraid to lose relevance. When you examine those fears honestly, you start to see that many of your choices were not strategic. They were protective. They were attempts to guard an identity. But guarding your image costs energy, and that energy is limited. Seneca wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." When you spread yourself across too many commitments, you dilute your presence. You may feel productive, but your impact weakens. By cutting what does not matter, you strengthen what does. Clarity is not created by adding more tasks. It is created by subtracting the unnecessary. Once clarity appears, precision follows naturally. Your decisions become fewer but stronger. Your words become fewer but more meaningful. You stop chasing every path and instead commit fully to the one that aligns with your direction. Over time, this discipline changes how you experience pressure. You are no longer exhausted before the real challenge begins. You have saved your energy. You have guarded your attention. When something important finally demands action, your mind is sharp. You can respond deliberately instead of impulsively. That is the quiet power of reducing decision fatigue. It is not dramatic. It does not attract applause, but it builds a foundation of steady strength. And from that foundation, your actions begin to carry weight because they are chosen carefully, not scattered carelessly. Let's take this deeper, because this is where it becomes uncomfortable. Sometimes doing nothing feels like losing. It feels like you are falling behind while everyone else is moving forward. You open your phone and see constant updates, announcements, new projects, loud progress, people sharing every win in real time. It creates pressure. It creates the illusion that movement equals growth. And if you are not visibly active, you start to question yourself. You start to wonder if silence means stagnation. But pause and look closer. Are they building power, or are they building noise? Activity can be impressive without being meaningful. Visibility can look like momentum without creating depth. Not every step forward is aligned with direction. The Stoics understood something modern culture struggles with. They believed in internal mastery over external applause. Their focus was not on being seen, but on becoming solid within. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." That instruction does not depend on an audience. It does not require validation. It demands alignment between intention and action. When you shift your attention inward, you stop measuring yourself by how often others see you moving. You begin measuring yourself by the integrity of your progress. That shift changes the emotional weight of silence. It no longer feels like absence. It feels like discipline. Imagine you are building something meaningful, a business, a skill, a healthier mind. Instead of reacting to every distraction, you withdraw strategically. You limit your exposure to noise. You say no more often than yes. You decline invitations that do not align with your path. You stop explaining every step of your journey. You work quietly. At first, this feels unnatural. It can even feel isolating. People may misunderstand your absence. They may assume you have slowed down. They may think you lost ambition. The world is quick to label stillness as weakness because it cannot see preparation. But preparation does not announce itself. It strengthens foundations. When you withdraw from drama, you protect your focus. When you refuse to engage in every trend, you protect your direction. Carl Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart." That clarity cannot be built while constantly scanning the outside world for comparison. It grows in silence. It grows when you remove yourself from the race long enough to understand why you were running in the first place. External noise pulls you outward. Silence draws you inward. And inward is where real structure is formed. Seneca warned, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Much of the fear around being quiet comes from imagination. You imagine others are advancing faster. You imagine opportunities slipping away. You imagine judgment forming in the absence of updates. Yet most of these fears are projections. When you step back and observe, you realize that many visible movements are scattered. They lack cohesion. They lack depth. The crowd often chases novelty rather than mastery. By choosing depth over display, you create something slower but stronger. There is also courage in disappearing from unnecessary battles. It takes strength to resist the urge to prove yourself. Epictetus advised, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." That clarity removes the need for constant performance. When you know your direction, you do not need to broadcast every step. You are not building for applause. You are building for alignment. That alignment is quiet. It is steady. It does not rush to impress. It focuses on becoming undeniable over time. The world often confuses speed with seriousness. Fast growth attracts attention. Quick expansion creates excitement. But rapid movement without structure collapses easily. Slow construction with careful attention endures. Aristotle once observed, "Excellence is never an accident. It is the result of deliberate practice, consistent refinement, and focused effort. None of those require public display. In fact, too much display can weaken the process. When you constantly seek approval, you adapt to trends instead of strengthening fundamentals. As you continue choosing silence when necessary, you begin to notice a shift within yourself. You feel less reactive, less anxious about comparison. You become more aware of your own pace. That pace may not be flashy, but it is sustainable. You stop measuring progress by noise and start measuring it by depth. When you finally reappear, when you finally reveal what you have been building, it carries weight. It feels complete. It feels grounded. Because it was formed without distraction. In the end, doing nothing at the right moments is not retreat. It is refinement. It is choosing to strengthen your foundation instead of decorating your surface. The world may not understand that choice immediately. It may mistake your silence for weakness. But over time, results speak louder than announcements. And when your work stands firm without constant noise, it becomes clear that what looked like stillness was preparation all along. There is a psychological shift that happens the moment you truly begin to master stillness. At first, it feels like you are giving things up. You say no more often. You stop chasing every opportunity that flashes in front of you. You resist the urge to correct every misunderstanding or win every argument. But slowly, something changes inside you. You become selective, and selectivity changes your presence. When you stop speaking constantly, your words carry more weight. When you stop explaining yourself at every turn, people begin to assume you have reasons for your silence. When you stop proving your worth in every interaction, your worth becomes less negotiable. That is not ego. That is alignment. And alignment is power. Power in this sense is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is not about domination. It is about control over your own energy. The world is filled with distractions designed to pull you outward. Arguments that demand your response. Trends that demand your participation. Conflicts that demand your opinion. Most people jump in without thinking. They treat every invitation as an obligation. But when you master stillness, you begin to filter. You ask yourself whether this deserves your attention, whether this aligns with your direction, whether this will matter beyond the next hour. That small pause transforms how you move through life. Socrates once said, "Strong minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, weak minds discuss people." Notice what it takes to live at the level of ideas. It requires detachment from daily noise. It requires resisting the pull of gossip, outrage, and endless commentary. It requires the courage to step back from surface-level conversations and focus on deeper principles. That shift does not happen by accident. It happens when you stop reacting to everything. It happens when you stop chasing validation through constant involvement. In that detachment, your mind gains clarity. You begin to think beyond the moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say." That tranquility is not indifference. It is stability. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you do not need to engage in every debate to maintain your identity. When someone insults you and you choose not to respond, you are not surrendering. You are conserving. When someone tries to provoke you and you remain steady, you are not weak. You are disciplined. Each refusal to react strengthens your inner position. You are building authority over yourself before trying to influence anyone else. Authority begins with choice. Most people live reactively. Their schedule is dictated by external demands. Their emotions are shaped by other people's words. Their direction shifts with trends. When you stop allowing trivial things to dictate your energy, you reclaim control. Epictetus advised, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." What is in your power is your response, your focus, your attention. When you guard those carefully, your life becomes less chaotic. You begin to move with intention rather than impulse. There is also a subtle confidence that grows from restraint. When you no longer need to answer every insult, your silence becomes strong. When you no longer need to attend every battle, your absence becomes meaningful. People start to notice that you are not easily pulled into distraction. That steadiness builds respect. It is not demanded. It is observed. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Becoming who you truly are requires saying no to what you are not. It requires refusing to be defined by every external pressure. That refusal is a form of psychological maturity. Seneca reminded his students, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." Stillness helps you identify your port. It gives you time to clarify your direction. Without that clarity, you are at the mercy of every opportunity that appears. With it, You become deliberate. You stop chasing shiny distractions. You begin choosing what aligns with your path. And that choice is the root of authority. Not the authority that seeks attention, but the authority that shapes outcomes quietly and steadily. As you continue to practice this, you notice that your life feels lighter, not because you are doing less, but because you're doing what matters. The art of doing nothing is not inactivity. It is disciplined refusal. It is the strength to let trivial things pass without claiming your energy. It is the courage to wait when waiting is wiser than rushing. And in that waiting, in that quiet selection of where your attention goes, you build a presence that cannot be easily shaken. Choice by choice, moment by moment, authority is born not from constant action, but from deliberate restraint. Eventually, something remarkable begins to happen. It does not arrive suddenly or loudly. It grows quietly, almost unnoticed at first. When you stop reacting to everything, you begin to see patterns. When you slow down your responses, you notice motives behind words, trends behind movements, and opportunities hidden inside chaos. While others rush to act, you are watching the structure beneath the surface. That awareness gives you an advantage that noise can never provide. The world moves quickly, but speed often blinds people to direction. When you are no longer chasing every impulse, you start recognizing which moments truly matter and which ones are only distractions dressed as urgency. As this awareness deepens, your energy feels different. You are not drained by constant reaction. You are not scattered across 10 minor conflicts. You are not exhausted by trying to prove yourself in every conversation. Instead, your energy gathers. It builds. Think of a bow pulled tight. From the outside, it looks still. There is no visible movement, but all the force is stored in that tension. When it releases, the arrow flies farther than frantic hands could ever throw it. That is what restraint does. It concentrates your strength. It allows you to move with power at the exact moment it matters. This is the paradox that most people struggle to accept. By doing less, you accomplish more. By speaking less, you are heard more. By moving less often, your movements become decisive. The crowd measures success by constant activity. You begin to measure it by impact. When you no longer feel the need to respond to every situation, your presence becomes steady. Others may still rush, argue, compete loudly, but you are not pulled into their pace. You are choosing your pace. That choice changes the way others perceive you. Calmness becomes your signal. Discipline becomes your language. There is a quiet strength in being unmoved. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." When you stop fighting every obstacle, you begin to learn from it. Instead of reacting with frustration, you observe what the situation reveals. Obstacles show you weaknesses in your plan. They show you gaps in your preparation. They show you where you must grow. When you remain calm, the obstacle becomes information rather than threat. That shift allows you to act with intelligence rather than emotion. Epictetus taught, "He who laughs at himself never runs out of things to laugh at." That lightness is part of mastery. When you are not constantly defending your image, you move more freely. You do not panic at criticism. You do not crumble at delay. You understand that not every challenge requires immediate force. Some require patience. Some require distance. Some require no action at all. Knowing the difference is what separates reaction from strategy. That knowledge grows in silence, not in noise. Carl Jung observed, "The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, but only outgrown." Outgrowing a problem means rising above the level where it controls you. Many conflicts dissolve when you refuse to engage at their level. Many distractions lose power when you stop feeding them attention. As you grow, you realize that constant reaction keeps you small. Stillness expands you. It lifts you above the moment so you can see the larger pattern unfolding. Seneca once reminded us, If you wish to be loved, love. That principle applies beyond relationships. If you wish for calm, cultivate calm. If you wish for control, practice control. The world mirrors your inner state more than you think. When you meet chaos with chaos, you multiply it. When you meet chaos with steadiness, you begin to influence the tone of the room. Your stillness becomes contagious. Others start to slow down around you. They begin to trust your judgment because it is not rushed. So here is the quiet challenge that grows naturally from this path. Look honestly at your life. Where are you reacting instead of choosing? Where are you busy instead of effective? Where are you filling silence because it makes you uncomfortable? These are not questions to judge yourself. They are invitations to refine yourself. Each unnecessary reaction is an opportunity to practice restraint. Each impulsive decision is a chance to step back next time. Growth happens in those small moments of awareness. The art of doing nothing is not laziness. It is disciplined restraint. It is strategic clarity. It is emotional control shaped through repeated choice. Once you begin to master it, you no longer feel the need to chase every opening. You no longer panic when others rush ahead. You no longer confuse motion with progress. Your actions become deliberate. Your words become measured. Your energy becomes focused. And in a world addicted to noise, that calm becomes your greatest advantage. There is one more layer to this that most people never consider. When you practice deliberate stillness long enough, you begin to change how you experience time itself. You stop feeling rushed by every deadline and pressured by every external clock. You realize that urgency is often manufactured. It is created by expectations, comparisons, and the fear of missing out. When you detach from that artificial speed, your thinking becomes deeper. You stop measuring your life in short bursts of activity and start measuring long arcs of growth. That shift gives you patience, and patience, quietly, compounds. Over time, you also become harder to manipulate. People cannot provoke you as easily. They cannot pressure you into decisions you have not fully examined. When someone tries to rush you, you notice it. When someone tries to guilt you into action, you see the tactic clearly. Your calm becomes a shield, not an aggressive one, but a steady one. You are no longer moved by every emotional wave that passes through the room. Instead, you choose when to engage and when to observe. That choice keeps you centered. There is also a deeper confidence that forms when you stop chasing. It is not loud confidence. It does not need validation. It grows from repeated proof that you can sit with uncertainty and not collapse, that you can delay gratification, that you can wait for the right moment without panicking. Each time you resist the urge to react, you reinforce your self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of long-term strength. Without it, you are always looking outward for reassurance. With it, you move with quiet certainty. Eventually, this discipline reshapes your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who must respond instantly to prove worth. You begin to see yourself as someone who chooses deliberately. That identity changes how others treat you. They sense that you are not easily pulled off balance. They sense that your attention is valuable, and because it is not given freely to every distraction, it becomes powerful when it is given. Doing nothing at the right time is not empty. It is intentional space. It is the gap where insight forms and strength gathers. It is the pause that makes your next action meaningful. When you learn to value that pause, you step into a different rhythm of life. Slower on the surface, stronger underneath. And when you finally move, you do so with clarity that noise could never produce. In the end, the loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest. The one who reacts the fastest is rarely the wisest. Real power moves quietly. It waits. It chooses. It strikes only when it must. And when you learn to stand still while the world rushes, you don't fall behind. You rise above. If something in you shifted while listening to this, don't let that feeling fade. There's another video on the screen that goes even deeper into mastering your mind and sharpening your inner discipline. Watch it next and continue building that calm strength. Thank you for being part of Stoic Journal.